Hello, and welcome to the South Coast Artist Index, where artists, performers, and writers, as well as curators, directors, and supporters, anyone with ties to the creative community, drops by to introduce themselves to you. We'll talk about their beginnings, their vision, their passion, and so much more.
And hello again. And we have a guest today that was on recently, and the conversation was so good, and there's so much more to cover that we're just going to continue it on. So this is a part 2. And in case you didn't hear the first one, I'm going to have our guest, as per usual, say their name, spell their name, and we'll take it from there.
Yes, my name is Cedric, Cedric, Vice, V-I-S-E, the number 1, and then Douglas, Douglas.
Just a quickie on the people who may not have heard the first episode. What does the VICE stand for?
Yeah, VICE stands for Visually Intercepting Society's Emotion. And what that is just visually with visuals, because I'm a visual artist. I want to intercept maybe how you perceive the world, maybe, or different people in this world, the thing we call the society. One project at a time, one image at a time, one creative gesture at a time. So that's what Vice 1 stands for. It's been my moniker for 30-something years.
Wow, that's quite a legacy.
And vice is a bad habit. We want to break all them bad habits. That's another.
Right.
That's where they came from.
Yeah.
But happy to be back.
You're welcome. And when I was heading back to do something else after the last time we spoke, I wanted to ask you these questions because it popped into my mind from a previous podcast, and the terminology for what you do. I mean, I've heard aerosol artist, I've heard street artist, I've heard bomber, tagger. There's like a plethora of stuff, and I think people use them, don't always use them in the correct way. But there was one. It was I was speaking with Lindsay Misch from DATMA. And one of the things that she said, if I'm correct, that she tried to stay away from is the term urban art, because there's a certain segment of society out there that equates urban with black. And because of that entire mindset. So that statement, that concept, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I can see that. People refer to urban as like, oh, it's urban. It definitely has a bad connotation to it. But I personally, for what I do, I like to generalize things as much as possible. But, we all have labels, and labels can be destructive or they can be useful. But graffiti is style writing. Style writing. That's what graffiti is. Graffiti kind of goes back to ancient times, but that term, I think it's Italian or Latin root, but graffiti is like the application of writing your name on a surface, and it's usually done illegally. I don't do graffiti anymore, per se. I do graffiti a little bit, but not as much, so I don't really consider myself like a full graffiti writer, because I'm not active like I used to be when I was younger, So street artist, that term is another kind of like pop term. It's like it can be letter based, it can be image, it can be a lot of different things. I started calling myself a street artist because I always saw street artists being the evolution of graffiti, because a lot of street artists came out of graffiti, but there's also college students that jumped onto street art because they liked it, or they wanted to make a name for themselves, or they just kind of was like, this is a way to boost my career. All different reasons, no judgment. But graffiti is style writing, but I consider myself kind of like a public artist. You know, because it's like a generalization of things. 'Cause I don't just do street art. Like some of my things are just asking people questions in the street. Like the street artists would never consider that street art. I wouldn't fit in that category. But also, social interventionist is a term I've been using almost since college when I first started doing work. Because it's like you're going out in the society and you're looking at this world and you want to make it better, right? So, and there's these interactions or like interventions, I guess. Because like Alcohol Anonymous, like we have an intervention to show someone that they're, to wake them up and be like, "Great, you really are an alcoholic."
Right.
So it's very similar. Is what I'm trying to do is have this social interaction with human beings and in my society and tell them this is messed up. Like, how can we think differently? And usually it comes from a point where it's non-judgment. It's just like, these are the facts. This is what happened. Like, can't really deny that this happened. So it's not like you're wrong. Like, I think that can be divisive and people resist. Right. So my work is really about trying to make people to shed light on things so people can like kind of think differently. So my title and the title, like, it's a big debate between graffiti and street art, and they kind of like are warring with each other right now. Like, because graffiti is, we can call it an art form or not, but the traditionalists, like in traditionalists in all different forms of art, the traditionalists within graffiti are just like, it's about illegal graffiti on a surface done illegally, and it has to be letter base. Once you start adding faces and cartoons and like, some of them are just like, no, it's all strictly letters. And there's a lot of creativity that goes into just letter making and style. Like when I went to college for graphic design, I really could see like, wow, letters are fascinating. Like this is how we communicate. There's a lot of variations you can do of this one A. An A can be done 1 billion times, different ways, little things. And same thing with graffiti. It's like, I always saw graffiti as taking the traditional phonetic alphabet and giving it some funk, or giving it some personality, or giving it some like cartoon, like almost taking the human body and how cartoon artists will make it look funny or interesting or curvy or rigid. That's what you're doing with that's what you're doing letter characters. They're doing the same thing. You're taking the traditional letter A, and sometimes they might have it like stretch out, like it's a cartoon, like a fat character. Or it might have a bigger middle section, or, you know, the ascender's bigger, so it's like a person with a big head. So it's very similar. I really like, I get so mad when people are like, I don't like graffiti. I don't like graffiti. It's like, graffiti is so, I look at it as so amazing, but like people just like, I like this stuff, but I don't like that. I like the faces. I think I talked about it last time about my interaction in Cambridge, but it's just like, there's a big difference between the two.
Yeah, when I was living in Portugal, one of the things that I found was graffiti, which was writing, and it ranged from pretty pedestrian, I'm talking about style-wise, where it was just somebody had this thought and wrote it down. But those thoughts were very poetic. These stop in your tracks kind of thing, like, wow, interesting. And then Coimbra, I mean, the university there is like, I don't know, something crazy, like 1,000 years old or something. You know, it's one of the oldest universities in Europe. And to get to the proper, you know, the university proper, you have to walk through these like alleys up this hill to get to it. And along the walls, as high as anybody can reach, is all this graffiti. And people are just expressing themselves. So, you know, it is a form of expression in one way. I mean, at the museum, there's a performing arts center and a museum in Figueira da Foz. And on the wall, almost encouraged, there's graffiti, but it's, again, impromptu, not stylized whatsoever. And there's this funky little character, and the script is, the revolution is you.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like there's a thought process that's going, you know, on behind that, and I found that interesting. And then, you know, if traveling into Lisbon on the highway, with those highway barriers that they have, I mean, it's like graffiti on both sides, and you're saying, you know, some people would be, oh my God, where are we going? What are we getting into? But it's looked at as though it is public sentiment in a public space.
Yeah.
Then of course they got the giants over there, Nils and Bardolo and there's too many to remember.
Yeah, I have some friends out there.
Yeah.
Cass, Mr. Cass.
Mr. Cass.
Yep. He's out in Portugal.
There was one guy who was in Figueira who did the barrier wall. They every time there was a major storm would take out this section of road, and they finally said to hell with it. And it was amazing to watch them work. I mean, how they laid stone and so on and so forth. Anyway, he did this. I mean, he's a spray artist extraordinaire. He had a codfish. You could see the rainbows on the scales of the codfish. That kind of detail, phenomenal detail. So it's there. It's very much accepted. But if we're going to roll back time, and so let's go back 30 years. Like you said, you're dodging cops. You're dodging the law. You're trying to, you know, working in the dead of night probably, or finding an abandoned building where you knew nobody's going to care and nobody's going to chase you. They used to. I wonder if anybody has any photographs. I just remembered. What the heck was it called? It was down by the railroad tracks, and it was called Scab Hall, I think it was. There was a name for it. But all this graffiti was all over those walls. And I think it's all legitimate. I mean, art is art, you know? So I'm always wondering, you know, and it's not permanent. So I've got like 17 questions, like trying to merge into one road in my head.
To, like, remember them.
So the idea of, we talked about your Madonna in Lynn. When you were doing it, you knew it wasn't permanent, right?
Yes, I did know it wasn't permanent.
Or the chance of it not being permanent.
I mean, nothing's permanent.
Yeah.
Like, I think that we like to think, you know, the more I do public art, especially, like, the more I realize, like, wow, forget about the art. Nothing's permanent. Like, not even this earth, they say, could be solar flared and be done.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's nothing permanent. And that's like, wow. When you realize that, you're like, you definitely have appreciation for things differently. I think there's a shift in that, just that thinking. And there was a shift in me in that thinking. But coming from graffiti, we all knew, because I don't do it anymore as much. So we all knew that this wasn't going to last forever. But kind of going back to something you said earlier is that I'm so fascinated with graffiti. Like, I studied all the different art movements, and like, I loved so many different art movements. I think the whole Dada and the Fluxus movement, which is very short, were like my favorite art movements. And like, but graffiti is like, I don't know, like, I really wish people could appreciate it as much as I do, because I learned so much through graffiti. But graffiti is like you got these young kids living in Philadelphia, living in the Bronx. The Bronx is burning. Like, we're talking about, like, the United States is like going crazy. And they got these young kids that live in this city, New York City. Like, when I went to New York City for the first time and like saw like the train station and saw so many people, there's so many people there. Like, how do you make it in New York? Like that song, Make It Anywhere, Frank Sinatra. It's like, it's so hard to make it there because there's so much competition. There's so many people. There's so much. Like, it's so overwhelming that to think these young kids wanted to express themselves, to say that I exist amongst all this craziness, all this Times Square, these travelers, the statue. I exist. I matter. Like, I'm here. Like, it's the essence of like human existence. Cedric Douglas, you know, Ron. Like, our names are, it's identify who you are, show that you exist. You see in advertising, people put their names on things so people can see and show. McDonald's on the highway, like in magazines, like it's important to show like who you are, and like and like there's something therapeutic about that, the act of doing that. And we live in a society. We have laws. We have rules. It's like, do this, do that. Go to school. You have to be in line. You have to wait your turn. You speak when you're asked. Like, there's so many rules. It's like, as a young person, as a human being, we want to break out of that structure. Like, I think, like, those kids that started doing this graffiti at 11 years old, like, these kids were 10, 11, 12. A lot of graffitis retired when they were, like, teenagers, 13, 14. I'm done with that. Kids were starting graffiti early, and they created this art form that's led across the whole world. I just recently painted with this artist from France. He reached out to me on social media. I'm in town, like, I want to paint some graffiti, and would you be willing to show me? I showed him around all these places. His wife, his hair was a gift. He loved the Celtics. He went to the Celtics game, and we painted a Celtics-themed mural with, and I had Jaylen Brown as a portrait of him in the middle, and it was a fun time, but it's like, that expression of like connect, we all like, there's a connectivity through it too, like this a mindset of like, I want to break out of this status quo world and show and put my name on society, in society, for people to see. If it's like, even if it's messy and you don't like it, I don't care. It's like punk rock, like, let's like, I want to just break out of this box. Hip hop came out of that, breaking out of that box. And that's why I love graffiti. And graffiti, they say, it was the first element. Graffiti, hip hop has these elements. It's like the structure between how you should, like, there's the movement based part, which is breakdancing, or b-boying, which is like popping and locking and all those things, which makes up one of the elements. Another element is DJing, like disc jockey, which is like the person who brings the music to the ceremony, which is like a hip hop event. And then you have the visual, which is graffiti. And then the MC, who is the person who's conducting the movement of people through musical expression, like singing, but through rhythmic patterns. So then you have that as a component of it. But then graffiti is the first one. Started in 1962, 63, 64 in Philadelphia.
Taki? Oh,
no, in Philadelphia, they say cornbread, but parallel to that in New York City, they say Julio 101, I think is 101 or 102, was the first writer to ever like put their name up. I don't think he ever was to be found in the last years because they've been doing a lot of documentations. The one I sent you, Wall Writers, it talks about a lot of this. But like to create this art movement with nothing, where buildings are on fire, like next door from your house.
It was grassroots.
Yeah,
it was,
and before that, it was gangs. It was like gangs.
Well, it was
like a lot of gangs.
It was leg lifting to mark your territory because these certain symbols meant this is our neighborhood.
And that's how it kind of is in the cities, like in like prisons and like a lot of these environments where people are kind of put together in negative conditions. It's like you're stuck in that you have to have authority in where you live. Everyone does it. Like people, this is my land. They put up signs. Like everyone does that. Like that. It's not like that different.
So it's simple, but it's complex at the same time.
So so you're having these gangs like the Black Spades and the Wild Nomads, crazy. All these gangs in New York City. No, that was way later.
Way later. Okay.
But these guys, they're unifying together because they want community, and that community brings safeness. And like there's a whole exhibit, I think, about this whole gangs in New York, which is really, I wish I could see that. But people want unity. So like that's where a lot of graffiti writers came together and formed like these crews. So the gangs became crews, but it was all creative expression. Gangs weren't really doing creative expression. But there was some graffiti writers that were in gangs. It was like the crossover between some people were like, you're either going to be in the gang or you have to be a graffiti writer. So like, but just to go back to like, this all came out of just people like having nothing and just being like, I'm going to express myself through dance, breakdancing, like DJing, bringing music, taking my mother's records, taking these records and making something new. Like, it's just like, graffiti, like just putting your name up, and then it becomes, I'm gonna put my name up big, and I'm gonna put it on a train. Oh my God, the train's more people are gonna see it. I'm gonna add more colors. Let's add some cartoons. Oh, cartoons. Oh my goodness. And then people started expressing things that were going on in New York. Crack is killing us. Like on the train. Imagine you're going to Manhattan when your three-piece suit. And it's like crack is killing you. Us hits you in the face. It's like that type of like empowerment. But then you see that in like Egypt, and you see it all over the world with like wars going on. The Berlin Wall. Like graffiti writers were like painting like those walls and expressing, but everyday people were just painting, saying, "I'm mad. This is me." My expression on the wall. Words can only do so much. Visuals can be like louder, they can stay longer, and they can be seen over and over again. The word is like, unless it's documented and recorded like this interview, it can be repeated. But visuals can stay there and be in your face. You have to see it over and over again.
When you've got kids coming from nothing, or people coming from nothing and nowhere, I mean, and it sounds very somber, very down to say that, but I mean it is. I mean, I remember 77 having to go into New York. I hadn't been there since my mother sent me back home here to live with my father till she was ready to come back here, and we'll go through the Bronx, and geez, I mean, it was like it was unbelievable, and then seeing the graffiti all over the place. But there's still flashes of memory. I remember that no matter how, as I told you, we were on the east side, between Madison and 5th and on 92nd, living with that uncle, and then we went on to Columbus Avenue, which was the edge of Spanish Harlem, getting these flashes of memories that no matter how poor it was, people had soap and water and stuff, and it was like Friday night, Saturday night, whatever it is, people get washed up and put on a clean white T-shirt. I mean, that was dressing up, and you would see the young people. They were like older than me. Obviously, I was like 5, 6, 7 at the time, but it's the humans, the human beings. I mean, and they want to express themselves. So you have this self-actualization from the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and then you were talking about I'm me, here I am, and I know it's kind of corny, but Neil Diamond, I am, I said, I am, I cried. Society has a tendency of overlooking, almost automatically, you're nothing until somebody says you are something, and
yeah, you see it more with the social media too.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'd love to be able to get funding for a podcast series strictly on graffiti, street writing, public art, that kind of thing, because I think it's super important. It's people had a thing about it because of the gangs, the crews and so on and so forth, and then there was that the urban art. So there's that bad connotation again on top of that, but now it's been embraced, and now it's been
that's one of the biggest trips. Like, when I think back of like when I first started writing graffiti, like when I was like 15 years old, 15, 14, I don't even remember. I don't even know. But I can't believe like how much it is accepted. From when it was like graffiti was hated by everybody. Like, why the hell would you write your name on someone's property or on a building? Family members, like my uncle Ronnie, my aunts, like they didn't get, like, why the hell would you do that? That's so stupid. And you can get arrested for it. Like, it sounds dumb actually the more you think about it. Like, why would you do that? Like, people hated it. Like, if you told someone you're a graffiti writer, they would be like, oh my goodness, you're like, why would you? You're stupid.
You the guy to put that stuff on my garage door?
Yeah, I remember like even talking to girls, like being like, I do graffiti, I love it, and they're like, that's fucking weird. Like, whoa. Like, it's just like people looked at it so bad, like all aspects. Like, obviously the police, everyone hated graffiti, but then now people love it. I was looking online for like they have those websites for like who gets the most tourists, like the Statue of Liberty or town or Bogota,
Colombia,
and there's a street art tour. It's one of the highest. In the last 10 years, it's been number one like 6 times. That's mean the whole world, this website, which is one of the best for traveling, people go to, like millions of viewers, they say that Bogota Street Art Tour is one of the sights to see. Years ago, people wanted to go to the Louvre. They wanted to go to the museums. They wanted to go to the Met. They wanted to go to all these like amazing museums. And now they find that people are going, they're like wanting to just forget the museum. This is free and it's amazing and it speaks to me. Literally, there's messages like quotes that are speaking to you, talking about get off your phone, talking about the world's like climate's rising. They're talking to you. There's something powerful about that. In a world where everyone has to shut up and fall in line and be in line and don't do that, and that's like what I was talking about when you're in school.
Yeah, no, go
There's
ahead.
something.
Yeah.
There's something really powerful about that, and it's just your name. It comes from just writing your name and rebelling against this. Like it's like when I think of graffiti, I think of like Public Enemy. I think of KRS-One. I think of Rakim. I think of like the Clash. I think of like Toots and the Maytals. I think of this rebellious punk rock, rude boy, like kind of like. I think of Iron Maiden. Like I think of like just like going against society. And really hitting people with like, I matter, I'm here, look at me. And that it's kind of an egomaniac thing, but at the same time, we kind of need that. But it has evolved into not just your name. It's evolved to speaking about what you are upset about. We all should do that. We all do it anyways. If you look at our social media, it's like millions of people saying how they feel about something.
It's showing
about their friends or about the society that we live in. That's the basis of kind of graffiti has evolved into street art. It's just showing people how they feel about this world we live in a public way. But it's done in a contemporary way usually. There's a visual language that's understandable by people that don't have the eye of an artist, which is very important.
Well, opera, very hoity-toity to use that old-fashioned term. You got to wear your nice suit and everything to go attend. You got to spend big bucks to go in there, and you got all these other like people that have money to spend on this cultural evening. But that started in the streets, and
Opera did?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
yeah, and it came from pain.
That's dope.
And I'm thinking of all of these things that occurred. It comes from the grassroots, and then when it gets into a commercial, I guess that's maybe a key word. When it gets to be commercialized, well, you have to have a middleman,
Well,
your art doesn't require a middleman. I mean, I can be driving by and there's nothing between me and...
A lot of graffiti writers talk about that and have talked about it before it actually got commercialized. I've been in like many conversations like, we don't want it to get pop. Like that was like a thing when you're rebellious youth. Like anything that was pop, you were like, no. It means like people become zombies.
Right.
Because they're controlled by like what everyone else thinks, not what is really true if you have an ear and you're really trying to listen. So, like, graffiti was in McDonald's commercials. Like, we saw it go from, like, I hate this. McDonald's are now using it and spraying person with a can. And, like, to see what it's grown into and, like, oh, my God, people are selling $1 million paintings that used to be graffiti writers. Basquiat used to be a graffiti writer.
Yeah.
He was a street artist more. He did write. He wasn't a style writer, but he was at the beginning of that street art phase.
Right.
And he was working with a guy named Al Diaz, who I met.
Yes.
Great guy.
Yeah.
Got a book signed and everything. But those guys were doing that to express themselves right there on the streets.
Yeah.
And they're having messages. And Basquiat comes from graffiti. He's the highest selling painting out of any American in the history. Basquiat comes out of graffiti.
Yeah.
To see that, even Banksy, people talk about Banksy, all this Banksy, because he's made a big impact. Banksy sells for millions. Banksy started off as a graffiti writer. Started off roots in graffiti style writing.
How many
His
years now?
name.
At least
and then
30,
now
right?
he's one of the biggest street artists in the world. So a lot of us start off, JR, he's another one. He started off as a graffiti writer and then became a photography documenting it, and then it led to his work. So, like, it's amazing to see that the perception of it then and now, and, like, the success of it. And it's one of the longest art movements they're saying now that's, like, at the top. Like, it's been a long time. It's been very successful. So, there's going to be a point where it, it does. You were talking about the question is commercialization of it. There's going to be a top where murals are not going to be as popular. Everyone's doing murals. It's like growing so fast. They're doing mural classes. My college teaches a mural class. I was like, what? They wanted me to speak at it. It didn't work out the timing, but like,
Right.
I'm like, my college, I was asking them to do murals on it like when I was going there 20 years ago, and it's like they're so late. To us, we're like, we should be doing this stuff.
Yeah.
And now it's like, now's the time. And people are appreciating it. So it's like, it's just going to get commercialized. But the last thing I want to say is that there's the graffiti purists. Just like I said before, the graffiti purists are going to say, this is not acceptable. And they're going to kind of spread it throughout the kind of that culture. It's like, there's people that are like, and there's the rules in graffiti, like, don't paint on churches, on synagogues, on
Mosques. Yeah.
whatever it is. Do not paint on any holy place. That's kind of a rule. You don't paint on nature. You don't paint on trees. You don't ruin nature. There's respect and there's rules within. So there's people within it that are like the purists within like all different parts of the world. Hip hop has this thing where it's like, hip hop has gone so pop with the music and stuff. It's so pop. It's not even close to the roots of the poetry of where it originated. But there's the purists that always like bring it back to that, and out of that, new things form into like greatness. But within a certain, it's hard to describe. Like there's graffiti writers that are doing all this crazy stuff with like maybe technology, and they're pushing it to all these different levels, but there's still the traditional graffiti writers that are like, this is what it is. And it always drops back to that. I don't even know how to describe what I just said. If that made any sense. Like there's people that are like, we're going to keep this true to what it is.
Yeah.
And they throughout time have always been like if I have cousins and stuff and I see them like, this is really hip hop, you need to listen to this music. This is kind of how, because if it's like, when it loses its form, it's going to be like, no one's going to know. It's important to know the roots of it. So there's people within it that are keeping that. So the commercialization, yes, it's going to happen, but there's going to always come back, I believe, to this true form.
Yeah,
like even graffiti, hip-hop, freestyling, like just rhyming off the top of your mind, designing words with your mouth on the spot.
Right.
That's the essence of like keeping things to like this creative...
fresh
exchange.
Yeah.
So this creative exchange.
Right.
Once
Pure.
there's some artists that are like, we don't do freestyling. I just write. Like, but everyone knows within the core of with the roots of hip hop, freestyling was one of those things. The spontaneity of like saying something off the top of your head. Like, that's like within jazz with improvisation is similar to the blues. When I lived in Savannah, Georgia, I worked at this blues bar, and this guy used to just play, and he'd be like, every time would be different, and he'd be like, just stop singing, and it's like he went into this like meditation. I'd be like, is that a different song? No, you lose yourself in the music, and it's like this meditative. So like, there's people that are gonna keep it back to that freestyle, like that, you know what I mean? Like there's all these different things that remind people of that origin. So the commercialization, I always say, it's definitely going to commercialize. It's going to fluctuate, but it will always
there's something about hip hop.
It's like anything else too. I think you go to the beach and you watch. You're standing on the shoreline. You're watching the waves come in. They can be gentle waves coming in, but you got to remember, sometimes the waves bring things in, and they take things out. So it's constantly changing. It never stays the same. But what is constant? It's not what the waves take in or bring in. What's constant is the waves.
Yep.
And that's an important thing. You're talking about letter styles and such, and all I could think of is I wasn't in VD, which that's what they referred to it at when I was in my BFA program. VD was for visual design.
Mm-hmm.
And they had Alexander Nesbitt, who was like the granddaddy of American typography. Yeah, he was like Lubelin, and like one of those guys, way up there. He walked around in a Nero jacket and stuff, and and people don't understand that part about design is that we all had to take calligraphy as part of our foundation.
Yep.
And people thought, this is so stupid. It's like, what are we, monks? What are we, monks? And it's like,
Closed mind.
Wow, letterform is like, it's not flat shapes on you. When you start looking at it, it has weight. It has presence. It's anchored. It's got dimension to it. It sometimes even 3Ds. Right. And so,
which is like, that's art, right?
That's exactly it. That's art. That's art. So now, my friend in Portugal has been. He says it's a new thing there. A lot of the muralists have been taking. We say professional, meaning that it's just not snapping it with their iPhone and taking off. They're doing a setup, and they're taking really good photographs, really good images, capturing really good images of their work. And then they have them printed out into prints, and they're signing them and numbering them in editions because, hey, everybody's got to make a living.
Yep.
What have you seen that here?
Yeah, I've done it once or twice. I really should do it more, actually. I've been thinking a lot about that, how to make like even T-shirts and stuff, with the technology with screen printing has really evolved, and you can do some really cool technical stuff. I think about doing that more.
Oh,
yeah,
crap.
more of that.
I can't believe we got like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, before I forget, way back in the 70s, I believe I was still in high school because, I was with my high school girlfriend. They refer to it to this day as the Kempton Street riots. It was part of urban neighborhoods were just exploding. I mean, you had Compton, you had all these places, Watts, you had all over the country, Detroit, everywhere was exploding. Those hot summers. I mean, people were just, I did this whole thing about greatness and it wasn't great for everybody. But there were two women who were working on a funded project, and as the city's burning all over the place, and specifically in that area, which is predominantly a black neighborhood, these two white women, and they decided that we got to do something. And they created what could, even though they were done on sheets of plywood, they were attached to a building. And I've spoken to one of the women. She lives in Florida now. But it's all fuzzy because you were just doing stuff to do stuff. You weren't thinking that you were making history or anything like that. That may have been the first. Everybody credits the Cedric Douglas mural, off of 7th Street there as being one of the first murals. It may have been one of the first accepted. It was actually an art project more than anything else. But street art, complete urban, coming up from nothing. They did, I believe, 4 panels. One was of Malcolm X, one was of Martin Luther King, and there were 2 others. I think Che Guevara might have been one of them. But you think of the mindset. The city's burning. They got the areas cordoned off. Police blockades. There was a couple of shootings. I mean, some nasty stuff going down, and you got people putting art up on a building. as a way of counteracting that or counterbalancing the whole thing. You talked about graffiti on the Berlin Wall. Do you think it's like a basic, cave, going all the way back to the caves? Do you think it's a human, like a DNA thing, like that we're wired to create work more so when we're under stress than when we're fat and happy?
My immediate answer is under stress, yes. But then if I think about it longer, I think sometimes you can create amazing work, like when you're in like a positive mindset and like fully connected to nature. Because I've done that recently, just been in nature and like just happy and like just like uplifted and happy and like connected to like my higher self. But being in nature did it. So and I still created amazing work and felt really good about it. But then I've also done it the other way where, like, right now I'm, like, very stressful, like, going through some crazy stuff. Very difficult stuff. And through this process, I've been painting. And I just learned, I was in Costa Rica on a art retreat, visionary art retreat, and studied with this artist from Peru, amazing artist, Luis Tamani. And I was in this space where I learned how to use a brush. I always told myself, spray paint is the only thing I can use. Mm-hmm. And I'm learning to paint with brush. Now I'm painting till late. But a famous artist said this. It's one of those stupid social media. I've been trying to limit my social media. But said this, and a really clip popped up. Right when I'm thinking about all this stuff. It was the best advice, going through all this tough stuff. Said to me, it said, why do you paint? And the guy responds, I don't know who it is, famous artist. And he says, I paint so I don't have to think. And it was like, oh, sweat. Did he just say so I don't have to think? Because I'm just like, in my head, I'm like, I should go paint something to think about the stuff I'm thinking. Because you just sit there and you start thinking about things over and over. And it's like painting brings you to this meditative state. And it's something that I just discovered. I never used to paint. Like with a paintbrush. In a paintbrush, there's something different about taking your time and getting things so accurate. And like, I do have like kind of perfectionist type of thinking in me. So like, I actually like that. And it's so meditative.
It is. I've had
it's very meditative.
Almost out of body experiences.
I paint so I don't have to think.
Mm-hmm. Well, here's one for you.
It's powerful.
Philip Guston, who, he was absolutely phenomenal. He was what they call a top tier ABEX or abstract expressionist. Very, very, and he had this thing where all of a sudden he starts doing the KKK. And he took a lot of crap for it. You're throwing away your career, your the whole 9 yards. And he was deadly serious on exposing the KKK and racism and so on and so forth. And plus, he had family who died in Auschwitz, and so it was all these emotions were all blending and brewing up into him. And he painted probably more prolifically during his socially conscious expressionist period. And he said. One of the things that he said was about, that caused that. He's in a studio wondering, should I use more red or should I use more blue? I'm paraphrasing. And he's like, then I realized this is the middle of, the Vietnam War is going on. I can see it on the TV. He's like, what the hell am I doing? What am I doing? Pushing colors around. What does this mean? So he starts doing this. And then he said...
That's the thing which is weird to me. Like, how could you not?
Yeah, well, he said...
as anybody, an artist, like a writer, like that's one of the things I've been an advocate. I'm sorry for cutting you off. It just felt to need to say this. That I've been like an advocate to telling people, like, to do that. Like, to really be like... If you're an artist, like, to... A lot of my art comes from, like, if I'm having a conversation with someone, they're like, I hate how, like... the city did this. I hate how our world's so... I hate how New England's
I'm like, and then the conversation occurs, and it's like, wouldn't it be funny if, I'm always saying that in those conversations, like, wouldn't it be funny if the city, like, did something with the potholes and did this, and like, that's actually would be fun. That actually would be hilarious if someone's like, you're having a conversation like, wait, why not write that idea down and possibly do it?
Yeah.
Like when it's like, wouldn't it be cool if, or if someone says, if it makes you like mad, like really pissed, or if it makes you really happy, like there's great art. That's what I always believe. That's
it's motivation.
Art. Those two things are art, because it's like, if something's so funny, you want to express that. Like some artists show things with humor. It can be even a social message, but they do it with humor.
Right.
And that like Banksy, I think, is really good at that. He expresses this crazy problem with humor. You know what I mean? And it's like, that wow, what am I really laughing at? So there's power in that, but then there's power of like, whoa, that's like a in-your-face fact.
Right, it's profound.
To see. So,
yeah, it's profound, and you know, and regardless of the kind of artist that you are,
yes, if you write
well,
something amazing.
I mean, like Philip Gusman said, he'd go into the studio with his parents in his head and his art teachers and his fellow artists and such, and he'd start painting. And he said one by one they'd start to leave. And then he really wouldn't start painting until he left too. Meaning that once he was into that groove, once he was into that vibe, once he was into that, and I've had, you know, we've all had where we look up and think, you know, gee, I've been going at 15 minutes. I got to go, like, and it's like, oh my God, 6 hours. How did the loss of time? It's like alien abduction,
It's crazy.
or having this weird, and I have them where it's an out of body experience where I'm actually astral projection, where I'm watching myself paint. Which is weird, or painting there and listening to somebody give me instructions.
Yeah,
I've told my wife.
I can see that.
I never met her dad, but her dad was a sculptor and as well as a physician, and I can feel him sometimes in the studio, like nudging me, like that color really, you know, that kind. So. And, you know, psychiatrists can give you all these reasons for all of these things, but it's required. I had a professor, Herb Cummings, who basically his philosophy was very simple. It's all perspiration. It's the perspiration of creativity. If you don't create, you're not going to perspire. And your body needs to sweat it out. It needs to get it out. And I really think that that's important.
Yeah.
You know? So, oh gosh, we're going to wrap this up.
Yeah.
But, you know, we do really, if there's anybody out there who wants to fund, and I'm going to throw him under the bus, as they say. I don't know where that expression came from. But anyway, if anyone wants to fund Cedric's graffiti, street art, public art podcast series, give us a call, because I think this is a conversation that should go on with a bunch of other folks as well.
Yeah, it'd be nice.
I mean, first,
be nice to do like a conversation about it, because I know a bunch of local artists.
Oh yeah, there's Tom Bob. I worked with him at Freestones, and then there's BB,
there's some local people we could bring in,
and really good ones too.
And then maybe at least like a show, like a show or something.
Exactly,
could be cool, or a mural or something. That'd be cool.
Well, folks, that wraps up another one.
There's funding out there. I'm sick of people saying that there's no funding. There's so much funding out there. I've been seeing actually more than I've ever seen before. Serious, more. Because I think people in the art world are trying to combat this taking down the funding. Because there's a lot of people that defunding, like the Smithsonian got defunded, like all these big institutions were being, but people are rebelling against them. Museums are rebelling. They're getting more political with their art. Like I really think there's still a shift happening, and to be more faithful about it, people should be more optimistic. Because I've been seeing tons of grants people getting lately. I'm like, whoa, I didn't even hear of this grant source.
Yeah, people
so just
putting their money where their mouth is.
Be more optimistic about it. It depends what you're looking for and all these different things. But you know, I'd partner you in trying to do something like that here.
Yeah.
I learned a lot about some of the street artists here from like the '80s in New Bedford. There's like a history here with street art, and people coming from Boston and New York, and like and then Providence. So like you can even spread out to that area. Like artists that want to come in and talk about it.
Yeah, I think it's
Because
important.
even Providence is right near us, and it's like there's a lot of people that lived here
Yeah.
and lived there throughout the last 20 years.
Yeah, they were much more mobile than people would believe.
Yeah.
Well, folks, we got to wrap this one up. So, like with that in mind, if you got, contact us because I think this is a very important series that we've got to get it documented because this is probably more fleeing than anything else. Any other kind of art form because it's impermanence. Everybody knows it's not going to last forever because the building's going to get knocked down, paint flakes outside. Then I'm wondering, there's probably somebody out there who's going to be doing ghosting. The murals that have been faded away and the weather's beat it off, and you can see ghosts on wet days of what the mural used to be like. So this ends our twofer with Cedric Douglas. Thank you so much for joining us again.
Last one.
And again, take care of yourself and be kind to yourself. That's important. And take care of others. Bye-bye. Till the next time.
Thanks for listening to the South Coast Artist Index podcast. For more information, please visit theartistindex.com.